Welcome back, guys and girls, to another episode of Dad's Toy Garage, and I'm bringing you Project Judith Ann, my 1973 Toyota Celica, or Celica, depending on which part of the world you're from. And in today's video, I'm pretty excited. I get to actually use the Durablocks that I showed you in the last video on this car here. And yeah, let's get into it. I'm thinking I'll probably finish the roof in this episode. I just used this filler, and I have to say there are a lot of things I like about it better than the Axalta filler that we have. I got more work time to work with it, and it spreads way nicer with no pinholes, the bubbles type thing, and it lays down nice and smooth. I ended up reskinning this whole roof because it still needed more work, so now I'm going to tackle it with a coarser paper and my new Durablocks and try and make short work of it. But I think this is what it needed. Yeah, I'm liking it. Hopefully this sands nicely too. There are edges where I like to use tape, and there are edges where you can trim off. So you can see this is kind of messy. A little trick my dad taught me: you take a blade, you just run it in here. When it's the right consistency, it'll come right off. You got a nice clean edge that you're working with after. And if you can shave it off, you don't have to sand it later. Another plus of this filler is it doesn't stink nearly as bad. Got the Durablock here, and the 80 grit sandpaper works really nice for shaping. I'm learning as I go on this project as well. This is my first restoration. I don't know if I said that before or not, but something you can note is where I've sanded it's lighter, and where I haven't sanded it's darker, and that's a good indicator that you got a low spot. So you knock them down and they'll show up that way. But this is coming along nicely here. Just wanted to show how you can tell when you got low spots. It's the same as a guide coat. I got half of the roof done, the driver's side of my car, kind of here down, and I have to say 80 grit is a great paper to knock down and shape, and I understand now why people do it, and I use way less paper, way less time. Yeah, I think I only used 4 sheets paper to knock this down. The filler is awesome. It doesn't stink that bad. You can actually hardly smell it. So I would recommend that. The Durablocks work great too. For anybody who's thinking there's a ton of filler in my car, that's just from half the roof. Most of it actually comes off. Let's see if we get a spot here. So I circled my low spots where I knew I needed filler, and the pencil came back through. You can actually see the transparency of the filler, and you know you got a nice block when it's nice and feathered is what they call it. So there isn't as much filler as you would think on this roof. Now that the roof is block sanded in 80 grit, I'm going to go ahead and switch over rolls now to 120 grit, and we'll go to block sand with that, and then I'll come back later with some 220 grit after that. I rigged up a little bit of an exhaust fan for the shop. It just gets so strong in here with the body filler. Basically, it's a box fan, furnace filters to keep the blades okay, and then I got a hole here for hooking your car up with tubing to run it with the doors closed in winter. And that's just, I built a shroud for it out of cardboard and some ducting that I bought at the hardware store. And you can tell it's actually working, number one, because the shop isn't hazy and it doesn't smell as bad. And you can see here the color in the filters. So the other thing I'm doing is pinholes. There was a couple and one low spot here, because there was a high spot. I tapped it down very lightly, and I skimmed it on, and then I shaved it off with a razor blade. And so now I'm just going to block over that. We'll see if that works, or if I have to get the glazing putty. I probably will at the end need glazing putty, but this is my initial pinhole fill. So over here we have the exhaust fan in that corner, block sanding here. Fresh air comes from the other side. I just cracked this open a very little bit, and it's enough because it's got the whole perimeter of the door, and it's only open like less than this. So okay, I knocked down the pinholes and gave it another block sound. I found a low spot in this area, so I gave that a go, and that seemed to work. There'll probably be a couple more pinholes. That's for glazing putty later. I got this dent to come out of here. Like I said, it was a high spot, and a trick my dad taught me: you go grab yourself a screwdriver, and it's not hammering on it as I showed you earlier. You're hammering on it. It's literally just putting it on the surface, and with your palm of your hand just gently tapping, especially on a roof this thin. And you can actually sometimes, like up here, I think it was over here, high spot, put the screwdriver on there and just lightly tapped around it, and it went down enough that the primer will take care of the rest. So you'll hear a bit of hum in the background. It's just my fan. It's not necessarily sound quality on this. I am using my shotgun mic, but as you can see, the white areas are starting to show up more, but what you want to see out of them is a nice feathered edge like this. And I've kind of got, we're looking at the roof here, this half done in 120 now. I'm gonna flip the car so it's easier to sand this side on the floor, and then we're gonna do 220 after that. But I am super impressed. I have to say, Durablocks are a yes. And so is using coarser paper and working your way down. It's a lot less effort in it, and it's easier to get those shapes the way you want them. Just some continuing the line from on the roof here. Put a tape along the edge here so you get the line nice and straight, and it kind of fades out around this area, and just carried it into here. So I'm going to block sand this first, and then the top half of the roof will be done. And then I'll get into, as you can see, I've masked here. I want to filler this over. I know there's a little dent in this area, and kind of fill down where I did my gap here, block sand that out. But for now we're going to get this done up in here. Okay, the tape is back on. I ripped it off to cut the line, and now it's back on. For block sanding, I've also, because the trunk is done, I've taped off that edge, so we're going to take care of block sanding this here now. The edge is now done, block sanded down to 120 grit, and right up into there. I blended it nicely, so I'm going to run a tape over what I just filled, and then that'll be ready to add body filler onto, and that'll be the next area we'll be getting, is kind of from here, go along here up till about there, then up the pillar and along the top edge here. This A pillar actually is really good. It's just a lead joint on the top and the bottom that will probably need most of the attention, and I think it's fairly decent in here. We'll find out once we block sand it. So all I got left on this roof for shaping is this back section here and the front lead joint, and then we will be on to new things. I find it interesting that even this strip here needs body work. There's actually a lot of wave in it. That surprised me because it's such a skinny strip. I thought it would need a little less. Whatever the case, we got our second coat of body filler on there. We'll block that down. I've got most of the blocking done in this area. These are kind of tough areas. They're compound this way, I guess, and this way and this way, so it's fun making that curve there. But we got the lead seams are both filled, and the one dent was right there. But these came out really nice. They were kind of fun to work on there, but it'll be rewarding getting this area perfect here. So I got that rear cowl done now, this piece in here, and it's done in 80, and I'll work my way down to 220 so it's ready for epoxy primer. And this corner here, I got it to work now, so I'm happy about that. So this is all ready now. It's all in 80 grit this stretch, so I gotta go work my way down to 220 and 220 the roof as well. Let's give you a look at the B pillar here. I think it's the B pillar. So all the block sanding's done, and the reason I had to do it in here was because that's where I welded the quarter panel on. So that's all done in 80 grit now. We'll work our way up to 220 in that area too. And I had to do up in here where the lead seam was. We're making some good progress here. The roof panel is now down to 220 grit, ready for the primer stage, as well as the side of the roof and the A and B pillars and the back cowl piece. I decided to try something. I took just some spray aerosol primer from a can. I sprayed along my body line. As you can see, it's quite rough. Each black spot is a low spot. Gets kind of nasty in this area here. But what it does do, I block sanded off the top side here. I want to start body working the quarter panel, and I had struggled to get this line and tape right. I have low lighting in the shop. This kind of lays out what's left of the line to start with for taping, so I'm going to work on taping off of there. And this will be kind of made up here, but I will work off of what I have on the other side. So I got the quarter panel taped off. Get the idea of the lines there. So I'm going to start filling on there. The other thing I wanted to order right away is the door rubber so that I can close it. I didn't think of it for the other side, so we'll have to put that in there as well and check that yet. But I'll put the door rubber in the latch assembly once I start sanding across the gaps there. But for now I'm going to work kind of like this part of the quarter panel back and get that done. We'll go top to bottom again. So my dad came down and helped me tonight do a door pin. The top one was fine inside this door, but the bottom hinge door pin was shot. It had lots of play, and so what would happen is you would set the door height. If you'd set it even here, and then bolt it tight and let go, it would drop a bunch. So that actually took us. We had to literally use a hacksaw, a drill bit, and a couple other things to get that door pin to go out. I would say it took us a good 2.5 hours just for that one hinge pin. It was so rusted in there, we couldn't get it out even with heat. So that's in there tight. So now I could fit up the fender. So the fender's mounted, the door's mounted, all onto the shell. And as you can see, I've taped all my lines off. I'm going to scuff it up with some 80 grit paper. And once that paper is on there, scuffed up, I can apply the body filler and start block sanding this. I do have the door rubber on the way from Thailand. And that we will make sure we get that in there before we do the final sanding to see if any tweaks are needed. But we can get a lot of block sanding done this way. So we'll get it. You can see I've done the top of the fender. Anywhere there's a hard edge, I've added the tape to make sure my lines stay sharp and crisp. And you can see it kind of follows out through here. And as I've said in the past, on the passenger side of the car, this is the most important feature line of the car. And so it's important to me that I get it right. So there's a lot of play in getting that right. This fender does not line up. I had to take a rubber mallet up in this area here just to raise it and then lower this a bit. This is the body line. This is made up. I say it was probably off about that much too low. So it's kind of from here to about this point. I've kind of recreated with the tape, and we'll use a body filler just to straighten that out, and we'll do the top, and then we will do the bottom, and then when that's done, we have a lot of progress made on this car. Well, thanks for stopping by for another episode of Dad's Toy Garage, and it feels great to get that roof done. It was a lot of work. It was a very rough panel, so it took a lot of block sanding. I think I had 3.5 times I filled it, blocked it. Now it's fairly close to the point where I can prime it. And as you've seen, I've got the tape laid out on here. So next episode, I'm thinking I would like to get at least the top half of this car sanded. If the rubbers get here from Thailand in time, like the door rubber, I want to put them in and redo the latches. It was kind of a vague how long it's going to take to get those rubbers here. It was like between a week to a month. So hopefully it's on the weak end of things. And when the rubber is in, we can confirm that the other side is good. Hopefully we don't need too many adjustments or reblock sanding on that. But yeah, thanks for joining us on this episode, and I will talk to you guys later.